we recommend listening to the CW Pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW Pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
Welcome back. It's so good to have you back.
Man, it is good to be back in Central Iowa, being around good people. South Dakota was great, and the people there are amazing, as you well know.
Yeah, I'm going to miss my Sioux Fall trips.
I know you will.
Well, I can go watch Petey still.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. He's still a Central Iowa guy too, but yeah, obviously this part of the country is special to me, and being closer to my family, it's pretty darn good time.
Well, you have such a backstory and that's what I want to focus on with our audience today, so they can get to know you a little bit, and we'll do the basketball thing. We have a lot of time for that.
We got a little bit of time before we tip that ball up in the air.
You have such this fun backstory, I think, that people need to know. So I got to know you. I first met you when you're a grad assistant under Greg McDermott.
Yeah.
I actually learned something about you during your press conference here. So you guys did a good job. Tell Harden and the guys they did a good job with that.
I sure will.
I didn't know about the elementary principal thing.
Now it was a high school.
Oh, high school principal, elementary teacher.
Yes.
I didn't know any of that.
Really?
I really didn't. I thought you just got done playing, knew Greg, got a grad assistant deal, come to Iowa State.
Yeah. I'm a little older than that.
Okay. How old are you exactly?
46.
Okay. So
Soon to be 47.
Yeah, you're 5-6 years older than me.
Yeah.
So you graduate from Wayne State, and you're not even going to try this coaching thing.
Well, it wasn't
How did that
quite
happen?
like that.
Okay.
You know, so like I always wanted to be this high school basketball coach and elementary teacher, right? And so that's kind of what the path was. And then about my junior year, Coach Mack said, "Hey, Hendo, what do you think about college coaching?" And I'm like, gee, that kind of sounds pretty good, right? I still can kind of be around the game every day and all that sort of stuff, and be around good people. And so that's when it kind of started to get in my mind, right? And then when the year I graduated, we had a great year. I had some great teammates, and it was just an awesome experience. And then Coach Mack left for North Dakota State. And I still had to finish up my student teaching. And so I really couldn't go with him then, right?
Yep.
It wasn't going to work out. And so I stayed at Wayne State and was a student assistant for Rico, who got the head job. And that's kind of where it started. And so I coached with him a couple years. And then the principal that I did my student teaching with, he had an opening and said, "Hey, Hendo, what do you think about, trying this gig?" And it was kind of the right time. So that's when I got to be a second grade teacher.
Man, second grade teacher. So you're a second grade teacher. You give me the process that leads you back into, college basketball coaching, because it's such an interesting transition.
Yeah, and so it's pretty unique, really, how it worked. But
did you just get tired of the kids?
No, I never got tired of the kids.
I would. I don't know how you did it.
I loved it, honestly.
I love kids for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Other than my own, of course.
They go to recess once in a while.
That's true.
They got a few specials here and there. But it was a situation where I was teaching second grade, and I was a girls varsity basketball coach for 1 year.
Nice.
And it was fun. We had a great year. They went 7-17 the year before, and I really didn't know what I was doing. But we had a couple really, really good athletes, and we went 17-7, and I'm sure they were a lot better than that, but that's what we went. And so right after the season, that's when Coach Mack got the Iowa State job. And, we were sitting around one night, my wife and I, having a couple Coors Lights probably, and I see Coach Mack calling. And so I said, "Oh, Coach Mack's calling," and I told Alicia, and she says, "Okay, whatever." And so I talk, I answer it, and he said, "What do you think about being a GA at Iowa State?" And so I'm like, my heart starts racing, like, holy cow. And that's really kind of what happened, Max. And I talked to my wife, and she's like, yeah, we're going. You don't even have to ask me this. And so,
ride or die, right there.
Yeah, ride or die, right there, exactly.
Yep.
And so we end up going. That's how I kind of got back in with Coach Mack a little bit. And as you know, that experience, we struggled a little bit, but being around great people and the experience was awesome.
Yeah, the McDermott era is just one of these crazy things where I look back at it, and I've actually talked with him about it quite a bit. It's like, I don't know how it didn't work, but it feels like all of you, TJ included, got so much out of that experience. When you look at what you guys were doing there and what Mac's done since, what TJ's done since, what you've done since, and, Petey being in the spot that he's in, it's really cool to see how you guys fought out of that.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy story, honestly, because we weren't, obviously you can determine success in many ways, but the outcomes, the wins, they were a little light. and so, but like you said, you can learn a lot of different ways, and obviously I think we'd all say there's probably, we would have done it a little bit differently or done a few things a little bit differently and wish it would have been a little bit better. But you learn along the way, and really being true to yourself and being true to who you are, I think is really, really important. And then just being around good dudes that you can trust and love every single day and just help build that culture and climate, I think is really the things that I learned. And then just building the relationships and meeting TJ, when I was at Iowa State, and other guys too. But that was really, looking back at it, how pivotal that was to my career. Even though we weren't successful, it is pretty special.
The Greg McDermott tie is one of the most fascinating parts of your deal, because you've known him in all these different ways. Yeah. Even like Otzelberger has just known him as he was his boss and now his friend. He was your college coach. You were a GA under him. You've seen him basically go from D2 to what he's done at Creighton. How has he evolved, and what have you learned from that over the years?
He's evolved in so many ways, but he's still the same dude. I think when I watch his Creighton teams and I watch, and just if I go to practice and watch how he interacts with the guys, how he's able to make people feel on a daily basis is incredible. Here I was a guy that probably averaged 4 points, and I was a pretty good rebounder and I could defend a little bit, but other than that, my value was probably minimal. But he made me feel like I was the most important person on the team. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure all my teammates felt the exact same way, right? And you can tell.
He did that with me as a young journalist.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Exactly. And so just how he can create that confidence in other people is incredible. And then how he brings the team together. And then basketball, that's not even talking about basketball. His vision, especially offensively, and how he can create opportunities for people is so special. And that's where I think, he's really, really evolved probably. We've always wanted to play a fast tempo, right? Yeah. And score, a lot of points. But I think he'd even tell you, after he left Iowa State and Doug went with him to Creighton, and the way he was able to adapt offensively and change and open things up even more, I think is just so impressive.
Well, I'm about to give you a compliment. I'm not going to do this very often. I'm going to be your harshest critic in Central Iowa. A lot of Drake fans asked me when you got the job, what is he? And you're going to love him. He's a great dude, all that stuff. I've watched so much South Dakota State basketball in the last 10 years between you and TJ.
Yeah, I know you have.
I've hit you up after random.
I know.
Yeah. My description of you, I would be like, he's kind of a hybrid, is how I see you as a coach between TJ and Greg McDermott, where, Otz is kind of and I know he can do more offensively, but when they got to Iowa State, right, they played this disgusting, we're going to fight you, UFC, all that stuff. You seem like a hybrid between those guys. Is that a fair description of you?
Well, if that's accurate, you're right. It's an extremely...
Honestly, it's what
the compliment is, because that would make me feel pretty good if that's what people see, to be honest with you, because the respect that I have for both of those guys. But I see why you say it too. because I do feel like, I've taken a lot from Coach Mack, and then from what TJ does and how he recruits, and that Bulldog, that UFC mentality type style too.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that inside me as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I just try to be myself, try to be extremely genuine, but also taking some things that I've learned from Mac and how he ran the program, both at Wayne when I played for him, and then at Iowa State when I was with him, and the goods and the bads and all that sort of stuff, and then watching him at Creighton, and then obviously TJ, spending so much time with him, just being his defensive guy, that he didn't let me spend any time on defense at South Dakota State. And then, I'm sure we'll get to TJ later, but how he has evolved as a coach as well. You saw those South Dakota State teams and how offensively we were unbelievably dynamic and electric.
Well, that's where when the fans hear, they're like, oh, Otzelberger doesn't know offense. He only knows defense. I'm like, that's not true.
That's not true.
It's not really what it is, but he got there and he saw this is what we have to do to win. And you've changed that too. With your teams 100%. At South Dakota State, you have evolved what you do to kind of just fit your personnel. Will you do that here at Drake? Is that the plan?
For sure. I think you always have a little bit of a style, right, that you want to play and you recruit to.
Yeah.
But then you do have to adapt with how because at the end of the day, the way I look at it, if you want to be in, the conversation for conference championships and winning late in the year, tournament games, Arch Madness, right? You have to be one of the better defensive teams in the league.
Absolutely.
And so I think to be able to have that mentality, and you have to be able to adapt. Sometimes you're going to need to be aggressive on ball screens with certain personnel. Other times, if you have a great rim protector, it's probably not the best way. And so to be able to adapt, like you're talking about, is really important. But at the end of the day, and as fun as offense is, and as fast as we want to play and score, and keep that tempo up, don't get it twisted. We know if we're going to win when we need to win, we have to be one of the better defensive teams.
Isn't that just a whole thing in college basketball, though? Because it used to be like, this is my system.
Yeah.
And you would recruit guys for 4 or 5 years to come in and play your system. Well, now, like, you especially at this level, especially in Brookings, even more so probably than here. Well, hopefully
not
it's
quite
a little more
quite
stable.
As much here, but
but you have to be able to adapt now because you're going to have a massively different roster on a year-to-year basis.
There's no doubt about it. And obviously when coaching changes happen like this, and and it was back-to-back years at Drake, there's going to be a lot of turnover, right?
Yeah.
But heck, Chris, you look at all our level of college basketball, there doesn't even have to be a coaching change, and some guys are having to replace their entire roster, right? And so you have to be able to adapt because you're not going to have kids in you're still going to have some, and hopefully you have a lot, but you're always going to be bringing in new guys, and how are you going to adapt, and how are you going to make sure that they're using their abilities at their max,
Mm-hmm.
and so being able to adapt, I think, is so important. But I still think the most important thing is how can you create connectivity in a quick fashion, because of the new kids coming in. How can you create a culture of love? How can you create a culture of I'm there for your brother, celebrating your teammate more than yourself, is going to be probably the key.
So you went from what I would call, if it's not the best job in the Summit, like with the fan support, all that stuff, it's one of, to that's how I would categorize Drake. So you have the high expectations that you've had there, you've lived up to them, you move up here. Where does Drake fit in like the hierarchy, I guess, of college basketball compared to what you've experienced? What is this transition like for you?
Well, like you said, there's so many similarities.
Very much so.
Number one, I mean, Scott Nagy, TJ, and what are we gonna? How do we keep this thing rolling? Right?
It's a tough deal.
It's a tough deal,
yeah.
but there's pressure, right? Mm-hmm. And then you had Darren, and then Ben, and now me again. But at the end of the day, we're going to worry about things that we can control and be super proud of what we've accomplished in the past, just like we were at South Dakota State. Scott was terrific. You know what TJ did. He elevated it even more and just was awesome. And we just control what we can control, and we found a lot of success doing it that way, right? And that's going to be the similar model here. Have so much respect for Darren and Ben, what they helped create here, right? And we're going to continue to fill it with great dudes that compete at a high level, and we're going to we're going to have some fun along the way. And I really believe the success will follow. Now the hierarchy, where does Drake stand, right?
Well, and the reason, here's why I went into that. I've heard a lot of people around here, and it's scratching me where I itch, saying we want to be the best mid-major in the country. I've heard a lot of people. I think it was in your press conference. The president said that. What does that mean? I guess what do you guys have to do to stamp that? Is it this continued consistency, filling up the NAP Center? How do we make that a tangible thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of combination of all those things, right? I think one of the biggest reasons I came here was because I believe in that vision, being one of the top mid-major programs in the country, and the enthusiasm, the excitement for Drake basketball is at an all-time high, right? And to achieve what we're talking about, you have to have support. You have to have support in multiple ways. You look how, Gonzaga did it, right? And not only did they create an environment that was special, but they also supported it financially, the resources, the facilities, and all that stuff. And you can see that happening here. It's not going to happen overnight, right? But you can see the support continuing to grow almost every single day. And that's where I think the vision is. That's where I think where do we stand in the hierarchy? It's just been fun to watch from afar how that's helped. But now I get to see it firsthand.
Was the last time you were here when that Dom team?
100%.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Yeah.
And it is crazy how much Drake's changed since even then.
Yeah, it's really crazy because I think that game, now it was.
What year was that? That would have been.
I think it was probably 8 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
I
was going to say
17-ish, 18,
16, 17,
something like that. But you were here, Chris. You were one of maybe not many.
I was a Jack. I was wearing the blue and the yellow that night.
Yeah, and it was over Christmas, right? I think it was right before Christmas break, and it is pretty incredible how far things have come in a short amount of time.
So the landscape of all this is just fascinating too, because I'm such like a 5-year planner. Okay, like I would be terrible in your field now. But you guys used to be able to do that.
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, even just recently at South Dakota State, we've been able to keep a lot of our players, and part of it is recruiting maybe a little bit more locally, and more regionally, and they have maybe a little bit more connections to South Dakota State or Drake or wherever you're at, right? I think that can help keep guys around maybe a little bit longer, but gets harder and harder.
But you're in a spot here, at least like the league is very different as far as what people are doing NIL-wise, right?
Very fair to say.
I want the fans to understand that we're not working with nothing here. This isn't a deal where, because I had Brian Harden and your collective leader who does a great job on a couple of months ago, and I was blown away just by the infrastructure that's ready. And at the time, we kind of thought McCollum might move on. The Fran stuff was starting to move around, but we didn't know for sure. And I was blown away by just how set up they were for whoever was going to be the next guy. Are you feeling that in your first few weeks here?
Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. I mean, just the organization of it is so. I don't want to use the word complex, but it's just established. They have a great, system set up where, in a vision and how they're marketing it is so impressive. And that's where, how we're growing this thing, that support in that way is phenomenal. And even when we're out recruiting right now, trying to fill our roster, we can play a game and even have a couple subs right now, brother. So we're hanging in there. But those conversations are people are getting real excited about it with the combination of with our collective, the type of student athletes that we're in conversations with, but also the support, the growth, the branding of Drake basketball just on a national stage continues to grow. And so the conversations that we're able to have with the players is pretty awesome. And it really, the Do Great Collective and Brian's vision, the Des Moines home team marketing plan, I thought was brilliant.
That's brilliant.
It's brilliant is we're able to recruit maybe, an athlete that we haven't been able to recruit in the past probably here.
So how do you approach it when you know everybody's going to try and take your players? That was the best line of your press conference, by the way, when you threw McDermott under the bus. Like,
He's a great dude,
yeah. I was dying. No, but
you have to have a little fun, brother.
I would be paranoid all the time.
Yeah.
I would be like, who's he texting?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'd be losing my mind.
Yeah.
What is as a coach mentally, is it just have a great relationship with them and hope they stay? Like, how do you deal with this?
I think that's where it starts, is building that relationship, building that trust, and building that love, and making sure they understand that you're down for them. But I think also making sure you're open with them. And hey, I know Zeke Mayo, William Kyle, Oscar Clough. I've had to deal with them for a while.
Yeah.
Baylor.
It's like if Bill Self calls, it's like.
and Zeke's going to his hometown team, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can't be mad at him.
No.
We're not paying him anything.
Yeah.
He's going to his dream school, right?
Yeah.
And so I think just being open with them and just saying, hey, let me know if guys are hitting you up. Where are you at? And you want to be a little light on some of those conversations because you want them to be engulfed in the moment, right? And that's what we talk about. Just you don't have to maybe look at it so far out, hey, in 4 years now I'm going to be the starting point guard where I'm at. Well, just make sure you're living in the moment. Be where your feet are at, and don't be looking at what's going to happen next year. Just fight like heck for this team. Love your brother. And then we'll sit down later and say, hey, what's the best for you? Mm-hmm. What's the best for you? What does your situation look like? And a lot of times, it's probably going to be right where you're at, but sometimes it's not. Yeah. And sometimes you have to be okay with that because at the end of the day, we're still here to help these young guys learn, grow, achieve their goals and dreams. And if that can be done somewhere else better, you can't be really mad at them for it.
Yeah, this is part of the deal.
It's a little bit part of the deal.
Because I grew up going to Northwest Missouri State games, so I was very familiar with McCollum before he got here. And with your Wayne State background, I guess, I know this has happened in low to mid-major college basketball, but it never got the pub that it did with Drake last year. Are these D2 guys, could that be a thing that's more common in the future? Because they're not really doing NIL. Or was that kind of like a flash in the pan type deal because of Ben's particular situation? They were so good. Do you think, what is the opportunity there, I guess?
I mean, I definitely think there's opportunity, right? I think there's good players everywhere, right? And certainly at that level, I played it. I have a lot of respect for it, and so I do think there are opportunities to look at, lower levels and especially there, let's face it, and even mine when I was at Wayne State, the experience was incredible. But like everybody kind of had a dream to play in the NBA or Division I basketball, right? Mm-hmm. And that's cool. And so to be able to give some of those guys opportunities when maybe they're ready is pretty cool. But I will say the situation with Ben was pretty unique, where he brought the number of guys that he did. And when you look at that situation, obviously Bennett's at a whole nother level, right? He's just a stud.
They need to do like a 30 for 30 on him.
Really, it's
honestly.
Really incredible.
Yeah.
And just being here this short amount of time and my interactions with him, he's been great. Honestly, it's no surprise he's having the success that he's having. But you look at in totality with what Ben did and the number of guys that he brought. You also have to look at the age of those guys. A lot of those guys were fourth, fifth, and even a sixth-year guy that their bodies were ready. Their experience was a big part of that success as well. And they played together. They knew each other's game extremely well. And so it was obviously it was a cool moment for Drake and what he was able to do and the excitement that just continued to grow was awesome.
Well, I guess, and that was, college basketball has just gotten to be so much of an older game.
Yeah.
And it's going to get younger because the COVID year guys are done and all that stuff. But when when you're shaping a Drake roster in the next 3 or 4 years, where are you still going to want to get X amount of high school kids? How much portaling do we do? Are you trying to get older, I guess, what pool are you trying to pull from?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be a team that goes out and grabs 8 to 10 portal kids a year. Yeah, I mean, that's just not who I am, honestly. And so we're still going to, recruit high school kids.
You're not going the Patino route.
No, we're not doing that. Our NIL, the Do Great Collective is awesome, and what they're doing for us is great. Yeah, that's a little different.
But that's the thing; it's so much more expensive to do that compared to the homegrown guy.
Oh, there's no doubt, and that's where we still want to. We still want to have a knack in that, right? And at the end of the day, too, Chris, there's not as many Division I schools recruiting high school kids. So what's that mean for a school like Drake is we can probably get a little bit more talented, a little bit better high school kid than we ever have.
Yeah, and then a lot of these freshmen just get cut after a year that are really good players. They just couldn't fit in on a high major.
No question. And so we're looking at that opportunity as well. And so that's going to be important for us. And now we hope we develop them, and we hope they graduate from here because it's a tremendous university and the academia is incredible, and the degree and the opportunities that they have will be great. But when you get a little bit higher level high school kid, and then they start to play, and then they're hopefully having a lot of success, it can happen then too. So it's such a fine line. But we're going to recruit high school kids. We're gonna certainly recruit portal kids, because when you look at the Missouri Valley Conference and the rosters that were put together last year, and when you look at the rotations of those rosters, top 7, top 8 guys, there wasn't but a handful of freshmen in the top 7.
Grown men.
Yeah, they're grown men. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to compete, I think you need to be older. I think not that you can't sprinkle some younger kids in, but you have to have some grown men. You have to have some experience and some girth.
Good thing is, I saw little Hendo. You got one recruit coming up in about 3 years. Is he going to be ready?
He'll be ready to be a part of it. I don't know what his role is going to be, my friend, but he loves it. I mean, he's a hoop junkie. He's an amazing kid, and he's already a homer. When I talk to him at night, Dad, who'd you have on campus today?
Oh, good. That's good.
He's on Instagram immediately. He's following him. I'm sure they're getting DMs. You should come play for my dad.
He needs to start like a Substack.
Exactly. I'm sure he does.
Well, that's one of the things I love about you, and I know that the community's going to love your family too. You got a great group, and it was great. I hadn't seen them in a few years.
I'm sure.
The kids are getting big, man.
Yeah, I'm a lucky dude, like you.
Yeah,
like
very
you.
Much so.
I mean,
very much so.
We're very fortunate, and we're certainly not the head coaches at our household. I know that, buddy. And so just they're super excited to get here. And we were in Brookings for 9 years, so it's not that there's not going to be a couple of tough days along the way with the relationships that we have there, but the excitement level that we have, our entire family to come back to Central Iowa and continue to make this place special is pretty awesome.
Well, I know. It's tough, because I'm clone to the bone, all that.
I know you are.
But I texted Harden when I got the news. I go, you may have a couple of new season ticket holders.
I love where this is trending, buddy. I love it.
Dr. Ashley was locked in. We didn't miss many South Dakota State games, okay?
Ash was probably more locked in than you.
I love you, man.
Love you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time.
We're going to have some fun.
We are. Eric Henderson, everybody.